I'm Yvonne from Growing Old Disgracefully.
I'm Marie from Midlife Dramas in Pyjamas. You can find us both on Facebook.
And now we've come together to bring you inspirational stories from midlife and beyond in our podcast,
Hear Me Roar!
Hello! Well, we've just been talking about... so, Marie, tell us about your Fanny.
Tell us about the disappearing Fanny.
Yes.
Well, I came across a video this week explaining that in the menopause or after the menopause, you are quite likely to lose your labia minora. Now, there are two types of labia. There's the labia majora, which is out there hanging out proudly, hanging on to any pubes you've got left. And the labia minora nestles underneath them. Inside ones.
Yeah.
And apparently they can shrink and disappear during the menopause.
And do you know what I did yesterday?
Checked them.
Stuck my hand down my knickers and checked. They're still there, yes!
To be fair, I did lay on the bed with the mirror just to do a head count, so to speak. They're both all present and correct. But then I wrote a post about this, and all the ladies were frantically going off to do a bit of checking. And the question is, where do they go? Do they just like drop off and you trip over them and pick them up and lob them in the bin? Where do they go?
I don't know.
And then what made it worse, I shouldn't have Googled this. Actually, I need to know how to clear my Google history. Apparently, your clitoris can also disappear up somewhere and lose sensitivity.
Oh, no.
I know, as if we don't have to put up with enough. Now we're going to lose that as well.
So Anne Summers will never be aiming at the older demographic.
No, clearly not, because we've got no need for Anne Summers. But do not despair, ladies, because apparently if you keep using these bits of your anatomy, they will hang around. Not literally. Not hang out. They will hang around and stay.
Oh, that's a relief. And your husband has bravely
selflessly
offered to keep an eye on them.
To keep an eye on them and make sure that there's no disappearing on his watch.
Right, okay, well, on to something, something completely boring, the actual podcast.
Yeah. We could talk about labia minora all day, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Sadly.
It's probably got something to do with the fact we're a right couple of fannies, really, isn't it? Pair of twats.
Oh, my days.
Anyway,
serious face now.
Yeah, serious face. Yeah. We are going to be talking to Jude Downing today. Now, Jude is fantastic. Honestly, you will laugh so much. We nearly wet ourselves during this one. And so we're recording this just after we've talked to her. And Jude is twice divorced, proud mum of 3, became pregnant with her eldest when she was just 16, and she was attending a convent school. So obviously the news was met with harsh judgment, in her words, and low expectations. She was told her life was over. She was destined for benefits and disappointment.
Yeah.
But Jude's not the kind of girl to roll over when someone says you can't.
No.
So she refused to let that be her story, and she worked really hard. She raised 3 brilliant sons and built a life on her own terms. So now she's 55. She's living a full and fabulous life filled with pride, strength and resilience. And she hopes her sons are living just as boldly and as beautifully as she always dreamed. Let's go and meet her. Hello, Jude.
Hi.
Good morning, ladies. How are you?
Oh, we're fine, thank you. It's lovely to meet you.
Well, you too. I know, obviously, I've known Marie a long time, but nice to meet yourself.
So this is the first time we've met, so I'm happily reading off a sheet of paper here. But I believe that you were pregnant with your eldest son when you were 16?
Yes. Can you imagine that as a parent now? I look at I've got 3 boys now, and I look at them when they were 16. My eldest 37 now, and I look at him and think, bloody hell, can you imagine him? He couldn't pick up his own socks. It would be like, Mum, where's this, all the time. So I couldn't imagine him at 16. But yes, I did fall pregnant at 16. Didn't tell anybody. And then when I was 5 months pregnant, my mum said to me, come here, I want you. And I went, okay. And she said, are you pregnant? And I said, I went, Mum, no. And then I thought, this is as good a time to tell her as any. Literally, I can remember going, Mum, no. Yes. And then there was multiple amounts of the brown stuff hit every fan in the local Gateshead area.
I bet it did, but as is the title of this episode, you've succeeded against the odds.
Do you know what? In some ways, I think where I am now is because of that. Because at 16, I was not a wild child, and I was at a convent girls' school, and on a scholarship. So as my mum said, I pissed that up against the wall. And I don't think she used those words, though. I think she said peed it up against the wall. And I was promptly marched out of the school when they discovered this. And then I was with the dad. And then basically he said at the time, well, after a little while, that he'd done it deliberately because he thought he was losing me. And then when Joseph he wasn't quite 3-year-old, and Robert said, do you know what? This is not the life for me. And left.
And he left?
God.
Oh, my goodness.
And he's never seen Joseph since.
Was he the same age as you?
Yeah, so by this point, I was was I 20? I think I was 20 when he left. And he was a little bit older, 22 or something.
Right.
And the thing was, when we were together, he was a great dad. If I'm honest, I was a bit of an arsehole woman. I was like, I don't know, he made me really angry, so I was just constantly angry with him. He wasn't a bad guy at the time, and then he just decided that actually it just seemed like a bit too much trouble and walked out.
Nice. Well, I guess as the man, he had that option. I mean, he shouldn't have had that option, but I guess he did, whereas you as the mum, different option completely, isn't it?
Well, I think there are men that would never leave their children.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But then there are women that walk out.
Yeah.
And there are women that I think, if it was the other way around, that they would walk away. But yes, so he went. But I decided once I was pregnant, I thought, well, I need to get my shit together and prove everybody wrong, because everybody said, right, that's it, that's your life over. You're finished now. You'll live on benefits. And my dad said to me, took me out in the car, and he begged me to have an abortion. He said, this could be sorted. And I can, with hindsight, at the age I am now, you've got this daughter, and he was like, Jude, and my mum was big Catholic, and like it never entered my mind as an option. But I don't know what I would say to it if I had a 16-year-old daughter who was pregnant, because it is hard. So at that age, I didn't really know anybody who had children. Actually, there was one other girl that I'd gone to primary school with that had a daughter a little bit after me, and we kind of knocked about together. We got on fine, but it was because all of your other friends, you've got nothing in common with them anymore. Yeah. I was in the middle of my A-levels, and so I couldn't do those anymore. But once he was born, I said, right, I'm going back. And I've just like to say, I proved my dad wrong, because I never ever was on benefits. I worked up until the day Joe was born. I was at work in the morning, because I had all 3 boys early. I worked in the morning, and I worked on the evening, and then I gave birth to him overnight, and I went back to work a week later.
Wow.
Because I didn't qualify for anything, so I went, well, I'm going to go to work.
So and I had was the fact that you were told, that's it, you're not going to succeed at anything now. Did that give you the motivation and the drive to prove everybody wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had a great time. I work really hard. I do work, even now, I work really hard. But now I work for myself.
So Jude, you had this very difficult situation going on at home, and it really affected your education, but you went back and you did your A-levels and you went on to uni. So how did your A-levels go?
Well, do you know what? When the first father vanished into the distance, I actually got married very quickly to somebody else, and he helped support me to go to do my A-levels. So I worked, but I also did evening school, so I could pick Joe up from school, and then I went and did A-levels. So I did, I was doing A-level media studies and also psychology. And well, psychology I didn't really like. I didn't like the statistics of it. I was like, this is dull. I don't like this bit. And I got an unconditional offer to go to Sunderland Uni, because I had to be local so that I could get back and forward
Yeah.
for Joe. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to bother with even sitting the psychology A level because I don't need to. And Tony, my husband at the time, said, you know, it's silly. You've done so much. You may as well do it. But I was like, oh, I'm never going to pass this because my heart hasn't been in it. But you know, when you get the perfect essays handed out, when I went in for the first exam, one of the questions was on forgetting, and one of the essays I'd learned was on memory. So I just switched it all around, rewrote it, and I probably got pretty much 100% for that. And then the next one I went in and I was like, oh God, where am I going to drag this from? But I got a C. So I passed both the A levels.
Well, that's good. And you went on to university and you did, am I right in thinking you did media and
cultural studies? Yeah, media and cultural studies. So I did photography, video, radio, film studies, and as my eldest son calls it, a total Mickey Mouse degree. Cheeky bugger.
Rude.
Did you have a lot of family support then while you were doing all of that? Because that's really tough.
Yeah, to do all of that and then come home to a young child. Really, I've no idea how you did
young
that.
yourself.
Yeah. Well, no, my mum used to be like, you can't go and live somewhere else, because I think she wanted us to stay there. My dad was great. He was, you know, very supportive. Once Joe was here, like they bought everything that I needed for him, and we had nothing. As I say, around these parts, we didn't have a pot to piss in. But I always wanted to give him whatever I could. We had a great life, and then I got married to Tony, but his parents were greatly supportive. They really helped look after Joe and my Auntie Connie. So yes, I absolutely had loads of support.
And that support in being able to get your education, that must have been the foundation for everything that you then went on to do.
It really was. When I left university in 96, I think it was 96, wasn't it? It's because I went back as a mature student, because I didn't do anything for a couple, 2 or 3 years, and then when Joe was a little bit older, that's when I did my A levels. And when I'd finished at university, because you can't get a job without experience, and you can't get experience without a job. So I was in this situation. So I walked into Metro Radio and said to them, I'll work for nothing, and they said, send us a letter in. And then I walked into Century Radio. You maybe don't remember Century, but I walked in there and said that to this very attractive blonde that was sitting on reception. And she said, hang on, I'll get somebody for you to talk to. So I started writing ads. So I went into what they called Comprod at the time. And when I was writing ads, just going in and helping out, but I got my face known around the place. And then a position came available upstairs on the sales floor, and the sales director came downstairs and he said, Jude, I want you to apply for this job. I didn't have a clue what it was. It was sponsorship and promotions. They called it S&P at the time. I didn't even know what S&P is. But I remember I went upstairs. He said, right, sell me yourself into this job. And I said, and I was honest with him. I said, I haven't got a clue what this job is, but whatever it is, I'm pretty bloody sure I can do it. And he went, yeah, go on, then we'll give you a go. And then I went on to do it for 22 years and not there. I was at Century for 11, and then I actually was headhunted by Metro, ironically. And I went over there, but I was there for 10 months. I hated every day. Every single day, you know, when you're really unhappy in a job.
Yes.
And then I was approached by Galaxy Radio. Don't know if you remember.
Oh, yes, I remember Galaxy.
So then I went to Galaxy, and I was there for the next 11 years, and then decided, you know what? Actually, I'm going to start up on my own. I'm not going to do this for you anymore. I'm going to do it for me now.
What spurred that decision?
It was just the business changed. Radio used to be so much fun. It was fun. Everybody worked hard, but you played hard, and there was great personalities in it, and everybody worked together. It was one big team, and then it wasn't anymore. And all that they seemed to be interested in was get the money off the client, get the client to sign on that dotted line, and then whatever. So that's when your job starts, when you're doing promotions for them. You know, you might be organising a roadshow or an event at their their location, or you might be doing competitions on air or writing things to go on the website. So your hard work starts once the signature's on the page, but they didn't want that. They just wanted you to go on, get more money, get more money. We're like, well, I've got a lot of work to do here. But yes, but get the money, get the money, get the money. And they were doing more and more video content, which, as we know, is, king now.
Yeah.
And they would do more and more video content. So we would come up with an idea for a video, and they would get an external company to produce the video, so that we would say to a client, yes, that's what you want. We get a price for an external company that they could go straight to and buy for maybe £2,000. But we'd go, yeah, you do all the work. But yes, client, can we have £5,000? That's how much that's going to cost you. And it didn't sit right with me. And then at one point, there was a video that the external company couldn't do. And they said, Jude, could you do this? I said, yeah, absolutely. Which wasn't part of my job. Normally would pass it over. And I did the first video. And when I saw that it took me 2 days and they charged the client £5,000, I thought, one, I felt like it was ripping off somebody. Doesn't matter whose money it is. It just didn't sit right. And two, I thought, I could do this. It's all my equipment we're using, so I'll do this. And I remember phoning home. I was walking around Sotwell Park in Gateshead, when you do your best thinking, walking the dogs. And it came, like if it was a film, there'd be all these thoughts, like on Gone with the Wind, when she thinks about all these, people, Tara, come. I was like, video, they want video, I could do this. And I rang my partner up and said, I've decided I'm going to set up on my own. And he was like, what? Because I was the major breadwinner. And he said, do you think you can do this? And I went, I think I can give it a bloody good try. And here we are 8 years down the line, and it seems to be going quite canny, really.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to have that confidence in yourself to give it a go and just go for it, really.
Yeah. But it was friends. It was friends confident, people say, absolutely, you can do this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And because of the where I'd been working anyway, with all the content with contacts with agencies, and even I ended up doing work for radio stations. So I would go in and do some video for them, and it's been great. It's been bloody champion.
What were the risks, Jude, of striking out on your own?
Financial. Because I thought, if it doesn't work out, I can get another job. I'm not totally unemployable. And so I thought, I'll give this a go. And my partner had a big promotion at work, and we worked out, he'd been in this promoted role for about a year at this point, and we worked out that with his extra money, I only needed to bring in £1,000 a month to be where we were before his promotion.
Yeah.
So I thought this is a good time to do it. So I handed my notes in. I started up on my own on the 1st of September. And I thought, I'll never, like September, I've got wages, I've got salary from my job coming in at the end. So as long as I can, this month, I'll not really worry about bringing in revenue. I'll just really start pedaling. And on the morning of the first day, because people knew what I was doing, I was walking Ben to school and thinking, this is great. I can walk my baby to school instead of sending him to breakfast club, and then he's having to walk to after school club. And he was shattered when I would pick him up. He was only a 6-year-old. And when I was walking back from school, my phone went, and I got my first job for Disney on Ice. And I was like,
oh my God, wow.
And I cried. I walked in, I was going, I can do this. But then at the end of September, my partner was made redundant.
Oh, no.
At that point, I thought, oh.
I bet you did. Oh, no, and then it's just so much responsibility.
The pressure.
That's just falling on you. Yeah, huge pressure on a new business.
Oh, horrendous. But as I say, I'd thought I need to bring in £1,000 a month. But I always remember across those 3 months, I brought in £8,000, and I was
wow.
like, but I'd worked non-stop. But yes, so it was marvelous, and I recommend it to anybody. Just love it. Do it for yourself. Don't do it for other people.
How on earth did Disney on Ice find out about you to just ring you up?
Because they're managed by an agency up here, and women supporting women. Mind you, I've had as much support from men as well. They'll ring up and go, oh, yeah, Jude, I know you're doing this now. I've got a client that wants this. And it was a lot of it was contacts, but even contacts of contacts. A girl that I'd never actually worked with, Rachel, who she'd done my job at different radio stations. She'd set up on her own, and so a friend of a friend said, you guys should get together, because she didn't really like working on her own. I bloody loved it. But we worked together, and she took me into a client she was seeing. I'm sure I've mentioned them to you before. Durham Animal Feeds, massive. Well, they do raw feeding. Place down in South Durham, and she took me in to see them to do one promotional video, and that was 8 years ago, and I'm there all the time now, do loads of stuff with them.
So what happens to your videos then? You make the videos for these clients, but what are they doing with the videos?
Well, now my business model had been to make promotional videos, but then the first couple of clients I went into, well, Durham Animal Feeds, and then a garden centre up here in Gateshead, they got me to do one video, and then I ended up staying on with them and doing their social media content. So I'll go in every week, talk to them about what's happening with their business, get some, it might just be photos, it might be videos, it might be writing posts and things. So it's not all video now. But then I do things with Metro Centre, which Maria and I worked on together. So
Yes.
so sometimes that'll be on their website and their social media. Sometimes it's business to business. So which is what Maria and I did, and they'll send those off to show to clients to say, oh, you should take a unit in Metro Centre or something like that, right. And they'll send them off. So it's all sorts of things. During bloody COVID, I think I made about 1,000 videos of how to wash your bloody hands. One day I cried with boredom, genuinely. Because when COVID hit, I had 7 clients, but 5 of them were pubs and restaurants. So straight away, 5 of them closed overnight. So I was like, what am I going to do? And because I didn't have business premises, I didn't qualify for any assistance whatsoever.
Oh no,
not a penny. But the garden centre could stay open, and Durham Animal Feeds, because they were essential businesses. They didn't want them closing down and just all this. Well, they couldn't. They had to stay open. So I worked with them, and at one point I was saying to the restaurants, you need to stay open and do collection and delivery. It's going to be massive because people still want to do these things. So I was driving and delivering pizzas for one of the businesses, just to try and keep everything afloat. Yeah. I quite liked it, really. It's quite good. Listen to a bit of Radio 4, chat to my mates, and I was the world's leading authority on what was going on with COVID. No, I heard on Radio 4, so it's got to be fact.
We need to ask you about Come Dine With Me.
Yeah, we do need to ask you about Come Dine With Me. How did that come about?
Well, so I am a really shit cook. I like the idea of it. I say I'm really creative because what I like to do is I can't follow a recipe. I'm like, I know better than this recipe. You know what would be better? Double of that, a bit more of that. And then suddenly you've got an oven full of crap. Or a slow cooker. I think slow cookers, you should just be able to throw everything in and a meal comes out. I can ruin things in a slow cooker. Soup, you need to slice it. It's never good. So for years, for all my adult life, it's been a standing joke how terrible my cooking is. So it was the first year I went into business. Before that, whenever they were filming in this area, people would send me the email and go, you've got to apply. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going on national TV to make a tit of myself. And then, so I was like, no, absolutely not. And then I'd set up in business, and one day my friend Paula, who I've been friends with since I was born, she tagged me in a post saying, looking for people in the Northeast. And I replied to her and said, not a chance. Anyway, that I didn't think any more about it. And then in the afternoon, I was sitting in a reception waiting to go into a meeting. And I was scrolling through Facebook again. And it came up again, and somebody else had tagged me in it. And I kind of went, and you go, and then I scrolled back up to it and I thought, I've never done that before, have I? I've never been on Come Dine With Me. So I got the email address and I sent, it said, send an email to get the application form. So I sent an email and I said, I think I could do this. Everybody says I'm a really crap cook. I think I'm just experimental. Think of something between Heston Blumenthal and Greg's. I've come up with marvellous creations like corned beef lasagna. Instead of mince, you use corned beef. Family love that. I don't ruin that. And I just sent off this. I said, I'd like to prove them wrong, because I think it's give a dog a bad name. I think I'm actually really good. And I genuinely thought I could win. Genuinely. I thought, that'll show everybody. I'll show them. and then I sent the email off and didn't think any more of it. And then it was maybe a couple of days later. Now I do a Dutch lesson. I'm learning to speak Dutch, and for whatever reason, and I was doing my Dutch lesson when my phone went. And because you're in business for yourself, I never ignore a call. If it's an unknown number, I still have to answer it because it could be business. So, or it could be somebody about an event that you just haven't got the number, and it's quicker to do that than have to re-listen to an answer phone. So I thought, what's that? So I said, hang on, to Philip, my Dutchman. So hang on a second. So I answered the phone, and this girl said, hi, it's Paris from Come Dine With Me. We'd really like to meet up to give you an audition for the show. We are in the area next week. Can you do Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday? But I was actually flying to Orlando on the Sunday. It was Easter weekend. So I said, I told her I was away, and she said, hang on a minute. She went off the phone. She came back. She said, right, I've had special permission to do a Skype recording audition with you. She says, can you do it in the morning? And I said, yeah, okay, yeah, I can. We were all packing. So everybody's moving around the landing. And I thought, I'm not telling them because I know what they'll say. Everybody's packing, getting all this stuff ready. And I said, I've got to do a Skype meeting. So I had, but I'd put on, they said, wear something that you would wear for a night out. So I had this nice top and dangly earrings and my red Lippy on, but then from the waist down I had joggers and Crocs on, and the kids were like brushing around, Mum, where's this? Mum, where's this? I said, look, I've got to do this meeting. And everybody was on the landing at this point. And they said, what's your meeting that you've got to be dressed like a tot? And I said,
well, from the waist upwards.
Yeah. And then some sort of, I don't really know what's going on down there. And I said, I wasn't going to say anything, but I've got an audition to be on Come Dine With Me. And literally they all stopped mid-step. And my eldest went, oh, Mum, please no, it's going to be absolute car crash, Telly. Don't do it. And I went, I'm going to win. And just shut the door. So anyway, we're in Orlando, and it was the middle of the night for us. Got a phone call and said, we're delighted that, we'd love you to be on the show. And you're not allowed to tell anybody because you're allowed to tell your close family, but you're not allowed to tell people because if it gets from one to another, it could quite easily go, oh, actually, I know somebody else that's doing it. And then you could start talking and trying to make it so that you won. So I created my menu, and which point Tom, middle son, said to me, when are you doing a trial run? And I went, trial run? Be all right. I could do it, it'd be fine. And he said, Mum, please do a trial run. Please do a trial run. And I did a trial run, and it was terrible. And I said, oh, well, got that out the way. It'll be much better on the night. And long story short, it wasn't. I made these. Well, I got phyllo pastry, ready-made phyllo pastry, and put it into like muffin cases, and put brie in it and cranberry, and then put that on a plate. And then but it just crumbled. You know what phyllo pastry's like? It just split. I managed to put my finger through the phyllo pastry when I was trying to put it into the cases, and when I served it, they did say, so did you make the cranberry yourself? I was like, nope. Well, you clearly didn't make the brie yourself. Nope. Did you make the phyllo pastry yourself? Not likely. And then my main course was macaroni cheese. And in my infinite wisdom, I can make macaroni cheese, but I thought I'll bake it. And I said, it's baked with a breadcrumb and Gruyere crust. And then on the day I realised, so the director said, have you got your breadcrumbs? I said, well, I'll just use the bread. And he said, well, do you know how to make breadcrumbs? I went, nope, not a clue. So, and apparently you need old bread to make breadcrumbs. So I had this fresh bread and I'm trying to grate it, and that was crap. And then it all just solidified. So when I served it out, just came out like one big lump out of these little ramekins that I've got. But the dessert was the pièce de résistance. I made a what did I call it again? Nana. Well, anyway, it was a cake with banana in. So as I'm making it, they said, aren't you using baking powder? And I went, no, why would I? Be fine. Baking powder. I don't remember anybody using baking powder, just flour. And then I looked up a recipe, decided to look up a recipe at this point. And it did say baking powder. And I said, well, I haven't got any, so we'll have to do it without it. But the bananas in the middle, they wouldn't solidify. It just kept getting, as they were getting hotter, there was too much banana in. It was in and out the oven, to the point that the film crew and everybody were just sitting around scrolling on our phone and chatting. And I went, I'm going to have another look at this bloody cake. And I kneeled down, opened the door, and I'd put parchment paper in because I wasn't going to fall for it sticking to the tin. So there was parchment paper, but I hadn't trimmed it apparently, which you should do. And the parchment paper had caught fire from the gas oven at the back. So I went, oh shit, it's on fire. And the director shouted, get the camera on. And but by this point I'd pulled it forward, obviously to stop the fire, pulled it forward, but a bit of the burning parchment paper fell on my jumper, which then went up in flames.
Oh my God.
So they're going, don't blow it out, don't blow it out. I went, I'm bloody on fire. So they actually only caught a little bit of the burning paper falling onto the floor. But when I served it up, the cake, you've got to watch the episode. You've got to watch it because it was just the tears. I thought I was going to wet myself. The tears run down my face when I got this cake out because I got the cake out and it had cracked along the top and the bananas were oozing out and it was going like this. Bleh, 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 with all this banana squishing out. And so I cut it. I thought I'd go for fantastic, what do they say? Not display, what do you call it? Presentation.
Presentation, yeah.
So I decided to try and jam said oozing cake into champagne flutes. So that I genuinely thought this would look nice. I thought it would look fancy. Yeah. So I put the cake in, but the ooze was coming down the side. And then I over whisked the cream that went like chalk. I didn't even know it could do that. It was just a carnage. But one of the guests said, he looked and he was like, Jude, this is like really terrible. And I went, I know, but I've done my best, but we're laughing about it. And he said, and I said, can I show them the rest of the cake? Because sometimes you weren't allowed to, they would say, no, you can't say that. And they would over record it. So I said, can I show them the rest of the cake? And they said, yeah, show them the rest of the cake. So I carried it in on the parchment paper. And one of the guys, he said, why are you serving it on a treasure map? I couldn't speak. I went, it's not a treasure map. I just set fire to the cake. But you can imagine where it was all around the outside. Yeah, so, but I genuinely thought at the beginning of the week I was going to win. I said to my sister, I'm going to win. And she said, I think you should just lower your expectations a bit. I was like, I am going to win. I'm going to show you all. So when I got the second, I got 7.
7 points out of...
Oh, no, was it 11? Because the boys scored me like 1 or 2, but the 2 girls were like, oh, no, it can't. They said it was the best night of the week because we just laughed all night, but the food was utterly dreadful. We ordered pizzas afterwards. We got pizza.
So you lost.
Do you know what was funny, though? So you're not allowed to tell people what the results were until it's been on TV. Yeah. But not one person asked me if I'd won. No one does. Which apparently, because we're still in touch, all of us that were on it together, and they were all getting asked, did you win? Did you win? Did you win? Did you win? I went, nobody. Not one person has asked me if I won the bloody thing.
So, just in case our listeners would like to go and have a look at this episode, because I think we certainly will. Which year was it?
Well, do you know what? This is what I always have to do. If I look it up on Tinterweb, I have to look up because they build it as what was it? Oh, it was something videographer, but they gave me a great description. Videographer Jude, Come Dine. I'm just typing it in here for those without watching me. There you go. It's day 4, and videographer Jude is hoping to win over her carnivorous guests with a decidedly experimental vegetarian menu. However, there's a distinct lack of vegetables. I didn't actually have any vegetables, so it was. It was Thursday, the 2nd of August, 2018.
2nd of August, 2018. 18. I'm writing it down because I'm going straight from here to watch it.
Yes, it's ridiculous.
So let's just come back to the more serious side now, because that was absolutely hilarious. I've got tears, smudged my mascara now, crying and laughing. Your business going from strength to strength?
Yeah, absolutely. To the point, I can't take on any more clients, like long-term ones, because I have clients on a retainer that I work in week in, week out. And then I'll take in other other jobs that's like a one-off, or a series of videos and things like that. And especially over the summer, because I do a lot of events as well. So I absolutely love it. I didn't know if I could do it, whether I would be driven enough to sit at home on my own and do it without somebody do it. But I tell you what drives you, when you know that money's going in your pocket, not some bugger else's. It's quite the motivator.
Yes, it is. And your business is called Jude Downing Content Marketing.
It is, yes.
Just want to get that out there, because we haven't actually said the name of the business.
It is, yes, it is. So, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So I think we can definitely say you have indeed succeeded against the odds, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I think it takes a special kind of person to overcome so much opposition at the beginning, such an enormous life change at the beginning, to then get back into education. That could not have been easy to do.
It swings and roundabouts, because I've got fantastic memories with the boys, and I'm going to be in their life longer than a lot of my friends who've had children at 40. I know that because I've got the 3 boys at different ages. I mean, I don't know whether Joe thinks this is a good thing, but we might end up in the same care home because there's so little time between us.
I bet you're overjoyed at the thought of that.
And Joe and I bicker all the time, because, my God, that kid, he just always thinks he's right. And I know I am.
He thinks it, but you know it.
Exactly.
Sounds like he's got a good dose of your determination in there.
Yeah. Yes, he has. So
your cake, because we discussed before we pressed the record button on this that you generally only drink water, so you were struggling for a cocktail or a mocktail.
Yes.
So we asked you, what about a cake?
A cake all day. I would happily live on cake if that was acceptable for a grown adult. Sometimes I do.
Just don't make it yourself.
No. Oh, hell no. God, no. I have got a cake mix in the pantry though, and I am thinking I might have a go when I get some copious free time. So we thought about a cake rather than that, and I think I would go for these rainbow cakes when they're cut in the middle. Not made by me, absolutely not made by me. In fact, nobody make this cake. Find somebody who is really good at this that's made a marvelous one that's got like red and yellow and blue and green all the way through, and they're massive. I like a good 8 inches, and and then I want absolutely tons of butter icing, and I want it between every layer. I want all that sweetness around the outside and loads of sprinkles, hundreds and thousands. So there's loads of colour on it. There's loads of sugar in it. There's loads of deliciousness. And then, do you know what? I might put squirty cream on it as well.
Well, why not? Because there isn't enough sugar in it already.
No, there isn't. Teetotal vegetarian, most boring woman on the planet. That's me.
Well, you're definitely not boring. Definitely not, Jude.
No, you've been brilliant to chat to.
We've loved talking to you. I am going to have so much trouble editing this episode. It's like, which bits do you edit? It might end up being the longest ever edit.
Thank you. An absolute star.
Yeah. You've made us laugh, and I'm sure you'll make the listeners laugh as well.
Well, I hope so. Much. Oh, it's been great fun. Thank you very much. And I love the ones you've done so far, so I shall carry on listening.
Right. Well, thanks again, Jude. Take care.
Thank you to our guest this week, and thanks for listening.
And we look forward to roaring with you again.